Prantaraja Shimabhagavatam ki Gaur all glorious cities
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
all glorious cities and the
Hare Krishna.
Shri Guru and Shri Govinda. Oh, so many different tables to choose from. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Deta Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Deta Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Deta Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Deta Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Deta Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Deta Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Good morning, everyone. No? Not a good morning? What's so good about it? What's so good? So many things with it. Yes? Yes. So, this morning, we're reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 9. We have written verse 29. I was assigned verse 29 and 30. Verse 29, I believe, Agnidev probably discussed a few days ago. There's no harm in discussing it more. Every verse. Prabhupada once said in the Bhagavatam, we could spend a month reading every day one verse. So why not Chaitanya Charitamrita? And who knows, we might memorize a verse in the process. Prabhupada once said, if you repeat a verse 10 times in this morning repetition, you'll memorize it. Yeah? Shall we do that? No, we don't memorize verses. That's fanatic. Okay. Who is speaking here, first of all, before we start? This is Krishnadas Kaviraj is speaking about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And as we heard yesterday, who is Lord Chaitanya? He is the Mali of the tree of the love of God. Mage vana mage keha patra va apatra.
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 Ihar vichar nahi jane deya matra.
Ihar vichar nahi jane deya matra.
Ihar vichar nahi jane deya matra.
Ihara vicharana hi jane deya matra.
Magevana magge keha patra va apatra.
Magevana magge keha patra va apatra.
Ihar vicharana hi jane deya matra.
Ihara vicharana hi jane deya matra.
Others?
Magevana mage keho patra va patra.
Magevana magge keha patra va apatra.
Ihara vicharana hi jane deya matra.
Ihara vicharana hi jane deya matra.
Magevana mage keha patra va apatra.
Magevana magge keha patra va apatra.
Ihar vichar nahi jane deya matra.
Ihara vicharana hi jane deya matra.
Magevana magge keha patra va patra.
Magevana magge keha patra va apatra.
Ihara vicharana hi jane deya matra.
Ihara vicharana hi jane deya matra.
Magevana mage keha patra va patra.
Magevana magge keha patra va apatra.
Ihara vicharana hi jane deya matra.
Ihara vicharana hi jane deya matra.
Ladies?
Magevana magge keha patra va apatra.
Magevana magge keha patra va apatra.
Ihara vicharana hi jane deya matra.
Ihara vicharana hi jane deya matra.
Magevana magge keha patra va apatra.
Magevana magge keha patra va apatra.
Ihara vicharana hi jane deya matra.
Ihara vicharana hi jane deya matra.
Magevana magge keha patra va apatra.
Magevana magge keha patra va apatra.
Ihara vicharana hi jane deya matra.
Ihara vicharana hi jane deya matra.
Magevana magge keha patra va apatra.
Magevana magge keha patra va apatra.
Ihara vicharana hi jane deya matra.
Ihara vicharana hi jane deya matra.
Great. That's 11 times, so now we all have it memorized. Yes? We're going to test you. Mage begs. Va or na not. Mage begs. Huh? Keha anyone. Patra candidate. Va or apatra not a candidate. The word patra, of course, literally means a container, like a bowl, a receptacle. So, candidate, someone who is a potential receptacle. Ihar of this. Vichara consideration. Nahi does not. Jane no. Deya gives. Matra only. Translation and purport by Swami Grace and C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. not considering who asked for it and who did not, nor who was fit and who unfit to receive it. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu distributed the fruit of devotional service. Shall we repeat this together? Not considering who asked for it.
Not considering who asked for it.
And who did not.
And who did not.
Nor who was fit.
Nor who was fit.
And who unfit.
And who unfit.
To receive it.
To receive it.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Distributed the fruit.
Distributed the fruit.
Of devotional service.
Of devotional service.
Purport. This is the sum and substance of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. There is no distinction made between those who are fit and those who are not fit to hear or take part in the Sankirtan movement. It should therefore be preached without discrimination. The only purpose of the preachers of the Sankirtana movement must be to go on preaching without restriction. That is the way in which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu introduced this Sankirtana movement to the world. And so ends Prabhupada's purport to this verse. The next verse, which has no purport, I will read because it was assigned to me. Anjali Anjali Bari Pele Chaturdishe Daridra Kudaniya Kaya Malakara Hase. The Transcendental Gardener, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, distributed handful after handful of fruit in all directions. And when the poor, hungry people ate the fruit, the gardener smiled with great pleasure. Om Jnana Timirandasya Vinanjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupagadamahyam Vedati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpataru Yascha Piva Sindhu Yareva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama The last few days we've been reading this section of Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is in Adi Lila. It is one of the introductory chapters of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Krishnadas Kaviraj was commissioned by the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan to write Chaitanya Charitamrita. This was in advanced years. He was very senior at this time. Actually, I say 6 Goswamis. By this time, most, if not all of them, had left. But the followers of the Goswamis, the various priests and followers in Vrindavan, requested him to write, especially about the later pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But in the process, Krishnadas Kaviraj, in effect, represents and summarizes the teachings of the six Goswamis. The Goswamis had written in Sanskrit. Who can read Sanskrit of the Bengalis? Because this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. He's coming from Bengal, and there's so many followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Bengal, and they're not reading Sanskrit. So for whom were the six Goswamis writing, we may ask. Well, we can discuss that later, but Krishnadas is being asked to write in Bengali, although he quotes a lot of verses in Sanskrit. And of course, eventually the Chaitanya Charitamrita will be brought to Bengal. And so he wants to he wants to weave into his story of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his biography, some would say hagiography of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He wants to weave in the philosophy, the theology of who is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and who are the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and what is the purpose of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in coming to the world, and what is the significance of this Sankirtana which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has probably would say inaugurated. So I want to back up a few verses because I always like to get the context of a verse. We're in the 9th chapter, and Krishnadas Kaviraj is preparing us to hear a list. He's going to give us a list of devotees, names of devotees. And we may wonder, what's the point? Why all these names? So here, Krishnadas is explaining. He says in verse 20, I shall try to name the foremost of the innumerable branches of this tree of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Please hear the description of the Chaitanya tree. And he says, at the top of the tree, the trunk branches into two. One trunk was named Shri Advaita Prabhu, the other Shri Nityananda Prabhu. From these two trunks grew many branches and sub-branches that covered the entire world. These branches and sub-branches and their sub-branches, so we have Shaka and Upashaka, and then Tara Upashaka. Their sub-branches become so numerable that no one can actually write about them. This is something that Krishnadas Kaviraj says several times in Chaitanya Charitamrita. He says, it's impossible to write all the glories of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates. Thus, the disciples and the grand disciples and their admirers spread throughout the entire world, and it is not possible to enumerate them all. As a big fig tree bears fruit all over its body, each part of the tree of devotional service bore fruit. Since Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the original trunk, the taste of the fruits that grew on the branches and sub-branches surpassed the taste of nectar. Why did the fruits on this tree growing on the branches and sub-branches surpass the taste of nectar? You weren't listening.
Because they grew from the trunk of Lord Chaitanya.
Yes, since Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the original trunk, the taste of the fruits that grew on the branches and sub-branches surpassed the taste of nectar. The fruits ripened and became sweet and nectarian. The gardener Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu distributed them without asking any price. All the wealth in the three worlds cannot equal the value of one such nectarian fruit of devotional service. And then we come to today's verse. So nice. This, speaking of the production of fruits, all of the branches, all of the sub-branches are producing fruits. And these fruits taste very nice. They're very sweet. So this is interesting. This is significant. And they have a great value. They have a value which cannot be compared to all the wealth in all the three worlds. In today's verse, we have the word vichara. And here, Prabhupada translates the word vichara as consideration. Ihar vichar nahi jane. He made no consideration. He made no, took no consideration. Not considering who's asked for it, who has not. Na vichara. Ihar vichar nahi jane. Not thinking about this. We have another verse in the previous chapter in which we find this word vichar in a kind of different sense. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Daya Koroho Vichar Vichar Korile Chitte Pave Chomatkar. Indians will smile at the words Chomatkar because they know Chomatkar means wonder, right? In modern languages, it also means in Hindi and Bengali. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Daya. Daya, what does Daya mean? Mercy. We hear a lot about mercy, right? And we understand that's what Lord Chaitanya gives. That's what we want. We want Lord Chaitanya's mercy. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Daya Koroho Vichar. Krishnadas Kaviraj is saying, if you do vichara, if you do consideration of, and Srila Prabhupada translates it as applying your logic, because in the context there's some discussion about reason and logic. Apply your reason and logic. Vichar korile pave chamatkar Shri Krishna Chaitanya Daya Koro Vichar korile chitte pave chamatkar. If you consider the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in your mind, in your consciousness, Habe Chamatkar, you'll be amazed. So this becomes a theme of the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita. Krishnadas Kaviraj is telling us in so many ways throughout the entire Chaitanya Charitamrita about the daya, the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he's inviting us in this verse, which I just quoted, he's inviting us to consider that mercy. So we are told in advance what we should be looking for. And we can ask ourselves, what exactly is mercy? What is this thing we call mercy? And one way to understand, perhaps the best way to understand, is mercy means the whole life and activities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You want to understand, you can go to somebody on the street in Stockholm or in Södertälje or in Järna, and you can ask them, what is mercy? Excuse me, sir, can you please give me a definition of mercy? How do you say in Swedish, what is mercy?
Lord. Barmhärtighet. Vad är barmhärtighet?
Right, okay. So you can ask, and people will say various things. So why you're asking me, especially in Sweden. Who are you? Why are you asking me? This might be a way also to inspire someone to take a book. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, ma'am. Can you tell me what is your idea of what is mercy? Mercy. Well, here, perhaps you would take this book. This may give you some idea. What is mercy? You can enrich your understanding, because everybody knows the word mercy. Be merciful. Have mercy on me. In the Christian tradition, mercy is often contrasted with the law. The Hebrew Bible, the Jewish law, I think there's over 600 different, what they call mitzvot, rules and regulations which are to be followed. And they're very difficult to follow everything. And Paul, who becomes one of the apostles after his conversion from being Saul and having a vision, he becomes a very active preacher for this new movement of Jesus and his followers. And he writes in one of his epistles, one of his letters, because he's trying to teach different people in many different towns, and he can't be in every place at once, and so he preaches to them through letters. So much of what they call the New Testament consists of letters. And in one of these letters, he's talking about the law. And he says, what the law really teaches us is that you can't follow the law. It's impossible to perfectly follow the law. And fortunately, we have the mercy of God. He has come as Jesus. Well, Christians generally misunderstand that passage of Paul. They think it means, so forget about the law. Just forget about it and just say, I believe in Jesus. No, that's not what he was saying. He's saying to perfectly follow the law is impossible, but keep trying. And by the mercy of the Lord, your effort will bear fruit. So mercy, as opposed to the law means there's going to be punishment. Mercy, mercy, help me. I'm so fallen. This we meet again and again, also in Chaitanya Charitamrita. This sense of approaching the Lord and begging for His mercy. Rupa and Sanatan Goswami are wonderful examples of this. Rupa and Sanatan, as we all know, were employed with the Nawab Hussain Shah. And as such, they would have been considered by the Brahmana community as fallen. Fallen, indeed, possibly untouchable. To be outcasted in Indian traditional culture, it's worse than death. And that's what happens to Ashvatthama, and why he's not physically killed, he's socially killed. This is the mood in which Rupa and Sanatan Goswamis meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Ramakeli. And in Ramakeli they say, O Lord, we are the most deserving of your mercy. Why? Because we are the most fallen. So this is kind of in contrast to what we're reading today. Mage vana mage. People who don't even ask for mercy, now they're getting mercy. This is mercy. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving mercy even without it being asked for. And this mercy which he is giving is priceless. We were hearing Agnidev Prabhu the other day was speaking on this wonderful song from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in which Nityananda Prabhu is described as opening a marketplace for the holy name. And there's this refrain, Koda Nitai, Koda Nitai. Koda is, as I understand, a word from Urdu, and Urdu comes from Persian, and Persian means it's coming from actually the Muslim influence, but it means Lord, but it has a sense of intimacy as well. Koda Nitai. Some think it's Gora Nitai. It's not Gora Nitai, it's Koda Nitai. But in that song we have this discussion about the price for the holy name. What is that price? The price is Shraddha, right? And so we have this nice imagery. Oh, that must be my sister. I don't have a sister. So Shraddha Muli, how does the verse go? Shraddha Muli Shudhanam. Yes, Shudhanam, pure name is coming with the Mulya. Mulya means price of Shraddha. Now, Shraddha means faith, but more specifically, it means faith, it means a conviction that there will be a result for whatever it is I'm going to do. This is the traditional understanding in Vedic literature. You perform a ritual with Shraddha, with faith, that there will be a result. So it's not the sort of fuzzy feeling of, yes, I have faith, I believe. No, it's faith that there will be a result. What is that faith that there will be a result? The faith in this case is a faith that indeed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving me shelter. Srila Prabhupada once said, anyone who is chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, we can understand that person has received the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, if that's the case, that means Shraddha must be there. Shraddha has been given. But Shraddha is described as mulya, as a price. And price we think of in terms of value, but there's two kinds of value. There's one which is measurable and the other which is not measurable. There's this comment from one British writer from the 19th century. He's giving a definition of cynicism. What is cynicism in Swedish? Cynism. Yeah, it sounds even more cynical than cynism. Huh? Cynism. Cynismo.
It's time.
Cynismo. Okay. Well, do you want to hear a definition of cynicism? Definition. Or rather, of a cynical. A cynical person is one who knows the price of everything and the value of nothing. He knows the price of everything. He or she thinks of everything in terms of price, but the value of something, no idea, no clue. Because there's a difference between price and value. That which is actually valuable, that is what we, as followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, are trying to reach to others, to give to others, the idea that there is something of value which you cannot purchase, which you cannot buy. In a sense, that's really what we're trying to do. Because nowadays, everything has a price. I had a teacher when I was in high school. Actually, he was a counselor. And he was we had a very nice, friendly relationship. And I would go to see him and just talk with him about all sorts of things sometimes. And he said one day, you know, everyone has a price. What are you talking about? I said, yeah, everyone. He was a bit cynical. He said, actually, if you think about it, you'll see within yourself that you also have a price. If someone would give you enough of something, you would compromise your principles. Ooh, that was hard to take. But that is the situation of the world today. Everyone is compromised. We are all compromised. And what is the challenge is really to take shelter of the position in which there's no compromise, because we have something of real value. That is what we're searching for, and that's what we're receiving from the Chaitanya tree. I want to just also say that the Chaitanya tree has, as Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, many branches, and Srila Prabhupada mentions in one purport, I believe it's in the 10th chapter, that ISKCON is one branch of the Chaitanya tree, and as such should be recognized as bearing fruit, as fruit bearing, because Krishnadas Kaviraj says all the branches are giving fruit. Now, this can be reflected on in many ways, and one way that I find important, which we tend to neglect, is that we are one branch of the tree. So there's a difference between one branch and the whole tree. Krishnadas Kaviraj is describing many branches. He says first there are two main branches, and then there were upasakas and upasakas and so on. But there are many branches. One day, years ago, I was in Navadvip. We were on our way to visit one temple, and there was what seemed like an endless procession of devotees. They were not ISKCON devotees, and they were all doing kirtan, and it just went on and on and on. And I wondered, who are these people? And I looked closer. That was kind of strange, because they were all obviously locals, and yet they were all wearing sort of Western style, like a baseball cap, but without the cap, just the visor part. And on the front of the visor was written something in Bengali. And I looked closer to see what's written, and it says something about Nityananda Vamsha. There's a whole Nityananda Vamsha out there. So this is part of the branch, and this is one of the branches of the Chaitanya tree. We are one of the branches of the Chaitanya tree. I mention this because in the purport also, Prabhupada speaks of the Sankirtana movement. He often used the word movement, the Krishna consciousness movement. He spoke of 6 times in his preface to Bhagavad Gita. Sometimes Hare Krishna movement, Sankirtan movement. And we like to feel that our society, one branch, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, is a prominent branch and perhaps is the whole movement of the Sankirtan movement. But what if we think a little bit differently? What if we think of ourselves as an educational society which teaches how Sankirtan can be most effectively practiced and most deeply understood through the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? And just to raise that question, I'll give one example from one of my godbrothers, very dear friend, also Ramatirtha Prabhu, who is better known to most devotees today, who reads Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers as Bob Cohen, because that was his name before he was initiated. And he's the devotee who asked all his questions, wonderful questions, to Srila Prabhupada, who gave wonderful answers. I was in Berkeley, California for some time, some years ago. He was there, and he was invited. Actually, I was invited too. For some reason, I didn't go, but afterwards, he told me about it. He was invited to one church service at a Baptist church in Oakland, California, is south of Berkeley, and there are many African Americans there, and many Baptist churches. Do you have Baptist churches here in Sweden?
Yes.
Yeah, the Southern Baptists in America, they can be very lively. Anyway, Brahmatirtha came back from his service, and he said, "This was amazing." He said they were doing Sankirtan. The songs that they were singing, he said, it was with such heart. He said, "This is Sankirtan." And that got me thinking, yeah, Sankirtan movement. So how is it that we can contribute substantially to the Sankirtan movement? Prabhupada said so many times about other religious traditions. How can we cooperate to preach God consciousness? He insisted, we are the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, he said to Allen Ginsberg. We're going to keep it that way, and that's how it must be. How can we help, and how can we encourage everyone in the Sankirtan movement? They may be from other trees, so to speak. And what about this tree? There are so many branches. How can we relate with the other trees? The other branches of our movement. So with that question, because it's already 9 o'clock, I'll stop there. And I see we already have a question in the back from Tattva. Yes. Hare Krishna. I think there might be a microphone for it also. Is there a microphone for questions? Yes.
Anyhow, I think that you hear me?
Thank you, Maharaj. Could you a little elaborate? I was asked just frequently from the church leaders or Lutheran leaders, what is the difference between the concept of the Christian Lutheran mercy and the Vaishnava mercy? So could you a little elaborate?
The difference.
Yeah.
Okay, but before thinking about difference, it might be also interesting to think about commonality. There was one professor of religion, studied religion in America, who fairly recently, some months ago, only departed. Houston Smith, I met him a couple of times, also a wonderful person. He wrote many books. One of the last books he wrote was called Why Religion Matters. It's a short book, very easy to read, not a scholarly book. Why Religion Matters. Anyway, one time he came and spoke at my university in a course I was doing, a seminar on the history of interfaith dialogue. And he made a drawing on the board. And this drawing was several straight lines which were not parallel to each other. They were converging toward each other. Then he drew a line across the middle, a horizontal line. And he said, from his own study of religions, and he had studied many religions quite extensively, what he could see was that there's a kind of perception of religions which is a mundane perception, in which what you see most are the differences. But there's another way of appreciating religious traditions in which what you see is a convergence. And, people talk about mysticism, and it very quickly ends up being some, what we would call sort of impersonalist talk. Neoplatonism, which ends up with the one, and so on. But still, to see similarity, if not complete oneness, I think can be valuable for a deeper reflection on what traditions are about, and how each of them might indeed be connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as Prabhupada said, being given by the Lord at different times, different places, with different purposes for different people. Different patras, patra, apatra. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his Chaitanya Shikshamrita, gives this wonderful reflection that if he visits a temple or a church or a place of worship of another tradition, he likes to go in and see the representation there, or the lack of representation, as a form of his Lord. I think he uses the personal possessive pronoun of my Lord. Let me see how my Lord is present here and how my Lord is being worshipped here. And let me appreciate that. What is our special understanding of what is mercy? Oh, I think the best person to talk about this is Madhavananda Prabhu. He's very deeply schooled in our Shastra. I am actually very much thinking about this lately because I've been asked to give a short presentation at one inter-religious dialogue that's going to be coming up in India. It's interesting, there's going to be a Vaishnav Christian dialogue which consists of 4 groups, 2 Vaishnava groups, one Sri Vaishnava, Ramanuja's following, and one Gaudiya Vaishnava, and the other 2 Christian groups, one Roman Catholic and one Protestant. We had this meeting a year and a half ago in India, and this means Indian Christians, which is an interesting phenomenon in itself. And it was wonderful. We had a wonderful, and it was so nice to see the different Vaishnavas getting along nicely with each other, and the different Christians getting along nicely with each other, and all of us getting along in a wonderful way. I would say, just in short, the special mercy that we appreciate is that indeed, as we have in today's verse, it is possible for anyone. You see, in the Christian tradition, there is a sense of restriction. You have to, at least in the Roman Catholic tradition, in order to receive the Eucharist, you have to be baptized. And then you have to receive, you have to go to confession, right? That's the system. And if you're not, then sorry, you're not permitted to take part in the Eucharist. The Eucharist is the sort of ritual, sum and substance of mercy in the Roman tradition, Roman Catholic tradition. It's the embodiment of, as they say, the body and blood of Christ. Interesting notion. For us, the mercy is in the form of sound vibration. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Nama Chintamani Krishna Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha. Purna Shuddho Nityamukto Abhinatam Nama Namano. The name and the reference of the name, the objects for which the name refers are abhina, they are not different. That non-difference of name and the person connects us immediately with the Lord. That is mercy. And how we get that mercy? Through Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Anyone who connects with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, simply by hearing. I was at University of California, Berkeley. It took 2 years. It took some time. We have to be patient also. It took some time. I was seeing and hearing the devotees chanting next to the main entrance of my university every day, and I was just kind of walking by them, but I was also noticing them. You couldn't help but noticing. And I started to wonder, why is it that those people every day, 5 days a week, and also 1 day or even 2 days on the weekends on another place in Berkeley, every day for 6 hours a day, they look happy? And why is it that I'm so miserable as a student? I'm so miserable, and I became more and more conscious of how miserable I was and how happy they were. And I knew that it wasn't fake. They're not faking it. They're not taking drugs. I kind of knew that. I knew they're not faking it. There must be something to it. And maybe I should find out what it is. It took a long time. I was a bit slow. The false ego was very thick. But that Maha Mantra was penetrating, gradually. Yeah, the more we can make ourselves accessible to others, the more we're fulfilling what we are meant to be doing. That's really the idea. I don't know if that gets to your question.
Could I shortly just could we say that the forms of the mercy are more defined, like you said, Maha Mantra, Prasadam groups, they are more defined in our tradition than maybe they have. And the other aspect, I mentioned that also, that we have like two, it's an interactive thing. They think by mercy alone and there's nothing to be done. It's like kind of another aspect. So we have something we can do, but still it's by mercy alone, ultimately. So am I a little on the right line?
Okay, more defined, we might want to say that, but you have to be careful because you may not be thoroughly schooled in Christian theology, which has been elaborated over the last 2,000 years extensively, which means they've also been, exploring what they mean by these things. From the early church fathers on up through the present day. There are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of new titles of Christian theology coming out every year. So it's not the kinds of Christians you might be meeting. They might not even be aware of this. But there's a rich theology in which they... there's a very interesting book which I've read recently, done by a Christian theologian, in which she compares some ideas in Christian thought and also in practice with Vaishnav understanding of rasa. And she goes into great depth on both sides. Very well done. This is a new field. People are now talking about, studying and writing about comparative theology. I can tell you later about this book. It's really very well done. Yes, my glasses don't see who I'm... yes.
I spoke with some Christians people sometime.
Yes.
And what I've heard from them is that they don't believe in the purity to become pure. And we know that Krishna
that
is
it's
the
possible to
purest of them all.
Yeah.
So how can they because they don't believe that you have to follow some principle and get up early in the morning and they're eating meat and all these things.
Yeah, the idea
this is
of
not
faith
sattvic.
versus works.
And how can they go to God? How can they come to God if they're not? Krishna is the most sattvic.
Yeah. All of these are big topics. We can talk so much about it. It's getting late. I would just say that in our own tradition, because we know about this debate, faith versus works, that's the usual terminology among the Christians. You can tell them about we have in our tradition, in our broader tradition, Sri Vaishnava, we have the cat theology versus the monkey theology. Oh, what is this? And you can explain. But we understand that it's really a combination of both. And our example of this is from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's explanation of the Damodar Lila, in which Mother Yashoda is trying to tie Krishna with a rope, and it's always 2 fingers short. And Vishwanath says, what are the 2 fingers? One is the mercy of the Lord, the other is the effort of the devotee. So both are there, both are needed. But we would say it's not our effort as such that qualifies us, but rather it's through our effort we are showing the Lord our openness. And this gets back to the word patra. Patra means receptacle. The mercy of the Lord is raining down. There's some nice Christian songs about that. Hallelujah. The Lord's mercy is raining down. Hallelujah. You know? The thing is to catch the rain. Right? So that's what we want to say, is we want to learn, we want to cultivate, using the gardener analogy, but or if you're some other analogy, we want to be sure that our container doesn't have leaks. Now they might say, well, that's not possible, because the nature of humanity is we are fallen. We are primordially fallen, original sin, right? There's nothing you can do. But again, they've misunderstood what Paul said. Paul said, you can't follow all the rules, but keep trying. And with the mercy of the Lord, you will be a proper receptacle for that mercy. That's my understanding. Okay. Okay, one more. Whoops. 2 more. Okay. Everyone's free to go for this.
Thank you so much. personally, I don't find it difficult to understand that the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu doesn't have to follow any rules and regulations. And he can just give the mercy to everyone. But playing devil's advocate, intellectual advocate, Krishna says in the Gita that not a single blade of grass could move without Krishna's will.
He says that in the Bhagavatam.
In Bhagavatam.
Krishna doesn't say it. Kapila says, but yes.
I'm not very.
Yeah.
And also in the Gita, he says, I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I'm equal to all, but whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I'm also a friend to him. So someone could say that, how is your God just? That if someone doesn't deserve it, you give, but just by chance, you give them the mercy, and if someone do deserve it, they might feel that they deserved it more because of some pious activity in their previous lives. So how does the chance factor? Because it seems to me that mercy is very much about chance. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives it without any.
Okay.
So it's kind of.
Yeah, these are tricky things. These are the sort of things that theologians do their hair splitting about. The word in Sanskrit, which is sometimes translated as by accident, is yadrichaya. It comes a few times, I think 19 times in the Bhagavatam. Yadrichaya. Sometimes when Narada Muni Narada, he kind of shows up sometimes, and it'll say yadrichaya. Then it so happened. But another way that Prabhupada will translate, I think Prabhupada will translate it is by good fortune. By good fortune. Wait a minute, and you keep wanting to trace that good fortune back, to some cause. And this is where devotional service, bhakti, becomes the very mysterious thing that it is causeless. It is causeless, but, and the acharyas explain, it is carried by the devotees. It's carried. It is by their mercy, which is causeless. Causeless. The whole Bhagavatam is about how everything is caused by the Supreme Personality of God. Janmat yasya yato. The very first word, the very first verse of the Bhagavatam, it's about what is the original cause. And then we find out, actually, bhakti is causeless. Huh? How does that work? And then, as you pointed out, this issue of deserving or not deserving. Well, all of this kind of gets pushed to the side when it comes to bhakti. Why? Because bhakti is flowing. It's meant to be accessible for anyone. And at the same time, it's very exclusive. Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam. This is the greatest secret. It's very exclusive. At the same time, it's open for everyone. It is a paradox. That's as far as I can say. Okay. Yes, Maris.
You were speaking about the verse that actually rather was speaking about the two branches of Lord Nityananda and Lord Advaita, and I wanted to ask the branches that come after, are they all belonging to one of those branches? Is there, in that case, is there a specific difference between the branches, and which one do we belong to?
Oh, interesting. Well, you've asked a question that would make me have to go back and try to trace through. I think I would need a piece of paper to start drawing a tree with branches to see exactly how that works. I have considered our Guru Parampara sometime in the past, and what we find is, from one perspective, it's very simple, and Prabhupada gives us this simple understanding in his list of the Guru Parampara his Bhagavad Gita. Where is it? The end of his introduction, I think. He gives that list. And he uses a certain word. He says the chain of the disciplic succession. Well, we all have the idea of the chain. There's just one line, and it's singular, and it's all connected by links. And if you're linked here, then you're linked at the beginning of the chain, we're linked to Krishna. Here we have another analogy. This is an extended, what's called an extended analogy. The idea of the tree with the seed, the roots, the trunk, the branches, the sub-branches, and so on. And this is also a naturalistic image. Trees are part of nature. They grow without human beings interfering. They're not a cultural thing, they're natural. And so this gives us the idea that the whole, the society of devotees is a natural development from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance. So this is more complicated. And the closer you look, the more complicated it gets. I'm sorry to say, but it gets complicated. And again, that could take quite some time to discuss, but one of the complications, of course, is the distinction which Krishnadas Kaviraj makes in the very beginning of Chaitanya Charitamrita between Diksha Guru and Shiksha Guru. And then we have Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur saying that for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, it's the Shiksha line, and I think he uses that term, that is the most important. But others will say, no, it's the Diksha line, and without that Diksha line, you don't count, you don't belong to the tree. So how all of this works. We take shelter of both images. Krishnadas Kaviraj gives us this, Srila Prabhupada gives us the image of the chain, the linkage in this way. And we understand by the fruit that we are connected. How we're connected, in one sense, becomes less important. Because we see the fruit, and we see, yes, chanting is going on. There is happiness. You are happy, yes? I had one interesting encounter many years ago. I was together with two friends, Suhotra Swami Maharaj and Bhakti Vaibhav Swami Maharaj. In South India, we were hosted by one Brahmin family for breakfast. And this Brahmin gentleman had a kind of speech defect. He could speak clearly enough, but from time to time, his ordinary volume of speech suddenly became shouting. It was involuntary. It was just his speech habit or whatever. So we were taking prasadam, and he was his wife, very nicely serving. And a few times he would say, "If you are satisfied," yes, we're satisfied. So on that note of satisfaction, I think we'll end here. Thank you all very much indeed. And Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Harinam Sankirtan Yajna ki, Gaur Premanande ki.